What if the man you were about to marry, the man you thought you knew, shattered your world with a devastating text message just days before your wedding, leaving you publicly humiliated and desperate for a solution? And what if a chance encounter with a mysterious stranger offered an escape so audacious, so unbelievable? It could either save your reputation or destroy everything you held dear. Who is this man? Sophia's mother whispered, her voice tight with disbelief as she watched Ethan Vance standing beside her daughter, Sophia Hayes, in front of the altar. I don't know, but he's definitely not Richard. Francisco, Sophia's father, responded, nervously adjusting his tie, his own confusion palpable. The priest looked anxiously at the couple. The groom, with his unkempt beard and longish hair, wore a worn leather jacket that contrasted dramatically with Sophia's elegant designer wedding gown. The murmurs from the distinguished guests grew louder, a wave of shocked whispers rippling through the opulent San Francisco cathedral. Sophia Hayes, do you take this man as your lawfully wedded husband? The priest asked, his voice trembling slightly. Sophia looked at Ethan, a complete stranger until just 2 days ago. Their eyes met briefly before she responded, her voice surprisingly firm. Yes, I do. 3 days earlier, Sophia had been meticulously reviewing the final details of her lavish wedding to Richard Fulton, her fiancé of 3 years, when her phone vibrated. It was a text message from him. I'm sorry, Sophia. I can't go through with this. We've grown in different directions. You deserve someone who loves you completely. Sophia read the message 3 times, her mind refusing to process the brutal, impersonal words. After 3 years, after countless plans and shared dreams, Richard was ending everything via text message, just 4 days before their wedding. It can't be, she murmured, the phone slipping from her numb fingers, clattering onto the polished floor of her architectural firm. Her assistant, Lucia, looked up from the blueprints of Sophia's latest sustainable housing project. Everything all right, Miss Hayes? Yes, Lucia, Sophia managed to choke out, her voice a strangled whisper. I need a moment. Sophia fled her office and drove aimlessly through the city streets until she found herself at her favorite coffee shop in Haight-Ashbury. As the daughter of one of San Francisco's most respected families and an emerging, brilliant architect, she knew the scandal would be devastating, especially with her family's annual charity gala scheduled for that very weekend, an event where everyone expected to see her as the radiant, soon-to-be wife of Richard Fulton, heir to a hotel chain. As she stared blankly at her untouched latte, the blueprints for her ambitious new project, a project she had poured her heart and soul into, slid from the small table when a waiter passed by too closely. Before she could react, a pair of strong, calloused male hands were already gathering the scattered papers. This looks like an interesting project, the man said, handing her the documents, his voice a low, thoughtful murmur. Sustainable housing? Sophia nodded, noticing his worn leather jacket, his slightly unkempt beard, the intensity in his intelligent eyes. Thank you. I'm Sophia. Ethan, he responded, a faint, enigmatic smile playing on his lips. Something in his calm, quiet gaze made her impulsively invite him to sit down. Perhaps it was the shock, the desperate need for a distraction, for a moment of simple human connection. Are you new in town? Sophia asked, her voice still a little shaky. Just got back after years away, Ethan explained, his voice tinged with a weariness that resonated with her own. I'm looking for a place to settle down, to start over. Their conversation flowed surprisingly well, easily, naturally. Ethan, it seemed, was an artist, though he vaguely mentioned something about technical work in his past. Unlike many in her own privileged social circle, he listened, truly listened, with a genuine, unnerving intensity. You seem troubled, he observed after a while, his gaze perceptive. Without planning to, without even realizing she was doing it, Sophia found herself telling him everything. About Richard, about the canceled wedding, about the impending gala, about the public humiliation she was about to face. My entire family will be there, she concluded, her voice laced with a bitter, helpless despair, expecting to see me happily engaged, on the arm of my perfect fiancé. Now, I'll be the center of a humiliating scandal, the talk of the town. Ethan toyed with a stray napkin, his brow furrowed in thought. I could accompany you to the gala, he suggested casually, his voice surprisingly calm. As your date. To avoid the pitying stares, the whispers. Sophia stared at him, her mind racing. An audacious, almost insane idea began to form. And what if, she asked, surprising even herself with her boldness. What if it was more than just a date? My reputation would remain intact if I appeared married, rather than abandoned at the altar. Ethan raised his eyebrows, a flicker of something unreadable surprise, amusement, in his keen eyes. Are you suggesting a temporary marriage? She clarified quickly, her heart pounding. A marriage of convenience. You need a place to stay. I need to save my image, my family's reputation. We can quietly, discreetly divorce in a few months. No strings attached. That's crazy, Ethan said, though he didn't seem entirely opposed to the idea, a strange, almost intrigued glint in his eyes. It is, Sophia admitted, a desperate edge to her voice. But it's a practical kind of crazy, don't you think? I have a large apartment. You can use the guest room. No emotional commitments. Strictly business. What Sophia didn't know, couldn't possibly know, was that Ethan Vance was not the bohemian artist he appeared to be. As the reclusive, enigmatic founder of Raycom Technologies, a cutting-edge software company he had recently sold for billions, he was tired of people interested only in his money, his connections, his power. And what happens when you find your perfect partner? He asked, his gaze searching hers. We'll part ways amicably, she responded simply, her voice surprisingly firm. Ethan studied her for a long moment, a thoughtful expression on his face. Why would you trust a complete stranger with something like this, Sophia? Because, she said, her voice filled with a newfound, desperate conviction. You're clearly someone who values honesty. You told me you're starting over instead of inventing some impressive, fabricated story about your past. And right now, Ethan, honesty is a rare, precious commodity I desperately need. 3 hours later, they stood before a civil judge, with Isabel, Sophia's best friend and a renowned architect in her own right, as their sole bewildered witness. Are you completely, certifiably insane? Isabel whispered as they signed the official documents, her eyes wide with disbelief. I know what I'm doing, Sophia insisted, though her hand trembled as she signed her name, sealing her fate. When the judge officially declared them married, Ethan took her hand briefly, his touch sending an unexpected, electric current up her arm. Congratulations, Mrs. Vance, he said, a hint of irony in his voice. The Hayes name stays? She responded, trying desperately to ignore the strange, unsettling fluttering in her stomach. It's recognized in my industry, a professional necessity. That night, as she showed Ethan the guest room in her elegant Pacific Heights apartment, Sophia briefly wondered if she had just made the biggest, most reckless mistake of her entire life. However, the next day, when she saw the ornate, gold-embossed invitation to the Fairer International Gala, this appears to be a slight mix-up from the previous story, where the gala was for Fairer International. I will change it to Hayes Family Foundation Gala to maintain consistency with the new character names and setting. Lying on her antique mahogany table, she knew with a chilling certainty that there was no turning back now. The die was cast. What if a desperate charade forced you to navigate a world of glittering pretense, where every smile was a performance and every shared glance a calculated risk? Could two strangers, bound by an impossible agreement, truly convince the world, and perhaps even themselves, that their fabricated love was real? Smile more naturally, Sophia Hayes whispered to Ethan Vance as they entered the opulent ballroom of the Hayes Family Foundation Gala, her hand resting lightly, yet possessively, on his arm. You look like you're heading to a funeral, not a celebration. I'm sorry, Ethan responded, his voice a low murmur, as he awkwardly adjusted the borrowed tuxedo that Francisco Hayes, Sophia's father, had hastily sent over when she announced she would be bringing her husband to the gala. The suit, though expensive, felt alien against his skin, a costume for a role he wasn't sure he could play. I'm not accustomed to these events. The grand ballroom of the St. Regis San Francisco shimmered with dazzling lights and exquisite crystal glassware. The elite of California society, a glittering sea of power and influence, circulated amongst themselves. Their conversations a low, calculated hum, champagne flutes clinking like distant, fragile bells. Gabriella Hayes, Sophia's formidable mother, her elegant navy blue gown a testament to her impeccable taste and unyielding social standing, approached them immediately, her smile tight, her eyes sharp and assessing. "Sophia, darling," she greeted, her voice a cool, silken purr, as she kissed the air near her daughter's cheeks, her gaze lingering on Ethan. "Aren't you going to introduce us?" "Mother, this is Ethan Vance, my husband," Sophia said, her voice surprisingly steady, though she could feel the absurdity of the situation, the weight of their audacious lie pressing down on her. Gabriella's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose a fraction. "You're what?" she asked, her voice a low, dangerous whisper, her smile faltering for a split second. "Her husband?" Ethan confirmed, extending his hand with a surprising, newfound confidence that momentarily stunned Sophia. "A pleasure to finally meet you, Mrs. Hayes." 3 agonizing days had passed since their impromptu, almost surreal courthouse wedding, and the cohabitation in Sophia's spacious Pacific Heights apartment had been, to her surprise, remarkably tolerable. Ethan, it turned out, was neat, respectful of her personal space, and possessed an unexpected, dry wit. They had established basic ground rules. Separate bedrooms, shared expenses, though Sophia insisted on covering the majority, a point of pride, and a carefully simplified yet plausible story to explain their sudden whirlwind marriage. "We met a few months ago," Sophia had rehearsed the night before, as they shared a container of takeout Chinese food in her minimalist living room, the city lights twinkling below. "We kept our relationship private because we wanted something intimate, something just for us." "And why did I marry you so quickly after your rather public breakup with Richard?" Ethan had asked, his chopsticks paused midair as he ate directly from the carton of fried rice, a gesture so unexpectedly normal it almost made her smile. Sophia chewed thoughtfully, considering the question. Because there was always an undeniable connection between us, Ethan. Even when I was engaged to Richard, a deep intellectual bond, a meeting of minds." Ethan had looked at her intently then, his gaze searching, unreadable. "Are you suggesting I had an affair with you while you were still engaged to another man?" "Of course not." Sophia quickly dropped her chopsticks, flustered. "Just a connection, an intellectual one. Let's just say we met at a sustainable architecture exhibition. You were captivated by my innovative designs." Now, facing her mother's skeptical, piercing gaze, Sophia silently prayed their hastily concocted story would hold. "Mother, I'll explain everything later. Where's Dad?" Francisco Hayes appeared just then, his expression more curious than annoyed, a stark contrast to his wife's barely concealed disapproval. "So, this is the man who stole my daughter's heart," he said, shaking Ethan's hand firmly, his eyes twinkling with a hint of amusement. "Rather sudden, wasn't it, Sophia?" "Sometimes, Dad," Ethan responded, his voice surprisingly smooth, his confidence unwavering. "You just know what you want when you find it." His words, so unexpected, so convincing, made Sophia look at him with a newfound, almost grudging admiration. The evening progressed tensely, a high-wire act of carefully navigated conversations and feigned intimacy, until Richard Fulton, Sophia's ex-fiancé, appeared, a beautiful blonde model clinging to his arm, his eyes narrowed with a predatory gleam. Sophia felt her breath catch in her throat, a familiar wave of anxiety washing over her. "Courage?" Ethan murmured, his hand subtly, yet reassuringly, on the small of her back. "You're the brilliant architect here. He's just a guy with inherited money and questionable taste in companions." Richard approached them, a condescending smirk playing on his lips. "Sophia, darling, what a surprise to see you here. I thought you'd be indisposed. Heartbroken, perhaps." Why would I be, Richard? She responded, her voice surprisingly cool, steady, drawing strength from Ethan's quiet, unwavering presence beside her. I'd like you to meet my husband, Ethan Vance. The surprise on Richard's face, the way his smug smirk faltered, was, for a fleeting moment, deeply, immensely satisfying. Husband? He stammered, looking Ethan up and down with a dismissive, contemptuous air. You certainly didn't waste any time, did you, Sophia? At least I know how to recognize true value when I see it. Ethan interjected smoothly, his voice calm but firm, his gaze unwavering. Unlike others who clearly don't appreciate innovative architectural talent, or, for that matter, basic human decency. Richard's eyes narrowed, his face flushing with anger. And what do you know about architecture, Vance? Are you even in the industry? I don't need to be in the industry, Fulton, Ethan responded, his voice laced with a subtle, almost imperceptible authority that made even Sophia pause. To recognize that Sophia's current project, her vision for sustainable urban development, is exactly what this city, this country, so desperately needs. Her proposal to convert that historic downtown building into modern, affordable housing, without destroying its unique character, is not just innovative, it's revolutionary. It could transform how we think about urban living, about creating communities with a low environmental impact. Several influential executives nearby, overhearing the exchange, nodded in thoughtful approval, and one, a prominent city developer, even approached Sophia to discuss her project further. Richard, clearly uncomfortable, his carefully constructed social standing suddenly threatened, quickly retreated with his companion, his face a mask of barely contained fury. How did you know so much about my work? Sophia asked Ethan later, as they drove back to her apartment, the city lights a blur through the car window. Ethan shrugged, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips. I read the blueprints you left on the dining room table. I have some technical training, remember? From my artistic endeavors. What do you think about Ethan's surprising knowledge of Sophia's work and his confident defense of her? Is he simply playing his role, or is there a deeper, more genuine interest developing between them? And what about Richard's ominous retreat? Will he seek revenge for this public humiliation? Share your most insightful predictions and passionate opinions in the comments below. What if a marriage of convenience, born from desperation and deceit, began to feel surprisingly, dangerously comfortable? Could shared routines and unspoken understandings blur the lines of a carefully constructed charade, revealing hidden depths and a past more complex than either of them ever imagined? The following weeks settled into an unexpectedly comfortable, almost domestic, routine. Ethan Vance spent his days painting in a small, rented studio nearby, or so Sophia Hayes believed, though she noticed he sometimes worked late into the night on his sleek, high-tech laptop, his brow furrowed in intense concentration. She, in turn, immersed herself in her new, ambitious project. Her alternative proposal to convert a historic downtown San Francisco building into modern, sustainable housing, without destroying its unique architectural character. One evening, Sophia arrived home late, frustrated after a tense meeting with a group of skeptical investors. They want to demolish everything and build luxury condos, she complained, dropping her heavy portfolio onto the plush living room sofa, her voice tight with exasperation. They displace an entire historic community, a vibrant neighborhood. Ethan looked up from the intricate sketch he was working on, his green eyes thoughtful. Why don't you propose an alternative? Preserve the facade, modernize the interior, include affordable units alongside the luxury ones. A mixed-use development that honors the past while embracing the future. The investors would never accept it, she responded, a weary sigh escaping her lips, though his words had already sparked a new idea, a fresh perspective, in her architect's mind. You always talk about architecture that serves people, Sophia, not just prestige or profit, he reminded her gently, handing her a glass of wine, his fingers brushing hers for a fleeting, almost imperceptible moment. This is your chance to truly live that principle, to fight for what you believe in. The unexpected warmth of his touch, The quiet intensity in his gaze sent a strange, unfamiliar shiver down her spine. Sophia felt an unexpected blush creep up her neck, and she quickly turned away, focusing her attention on the challenging project, her mind suddenly buzzing with new, audacious possibilities. "You're right," she said, a newfound determination in her voice. "I'll prepare an alternative proposal. A better one." With the passing days, Sophia found herself, surprisingly, depending more and more on Ethan's insightful opinions, his unexpectedly astute observations. His perspectives, coming from outside the insular, often pretentious world of high architecture, were refreshingly honest, surprisingly insightful. One afternoon, while meticulously reviewing her detailed blueprints on the large dining room table, she found a few of Ethan's loose papers mixed in with hers. They weren't abstract paintings, as she might have expected from a bohemian artist, but highly detailed, complex technical designs of some kind of advanced technological device. "What's this, Ethan?" she asked when he returned from the supermarket, his arms laden with groceries. Ethan froze for a moment, a flicker of something unreadable, surprise, annoyance, in his eyes. "Oh, that," he said vaguely, quickly gathering the papers. "Just some old ideas I was tinkering with. I used to work in engineering a long time ago, before I dedicated myself fully to art." "This doesn't look like the work of an amateur, Ethan," she insisted, her architect's eye recognizing the sophisticated, almost revolutionary nature of the designs. "This is highly advanced. Sophisticated. I had some success in my field," he admitted, his voice deliberately vague, a subtle dismissal in his tone. "But I prefer not to talk about that. It's a past I've left behind." That night, as they shared a simple dinner on the balcony, overlooking the glittering expanse of the city, the stars like scattered diamonds against the velvet sky, Sophia realized, with a jolt, that she no longer thought of their arrangement as purely temporary, as a mere means to an end. Ethan's quiet, unassuming presence had become a comforting, almost essential part of her life. His insightful conversations, his unexpected support, his surprising depth. It was all beginning to feel real. When he passed her the bottle of wine, their hands brushed again, and this time, neither of them pulled away immediately. A silent, unspoken acknowledgement of a connection that was growing stronger, deeper, with each passing day. "We promised there would be no complications," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the distant city hum, though her eyes, when they met his, revealed a maelstrom of conflicting, undeniable emotions. "I know," he responded, his own voice a low murmur, his gaze intense, unwavering, as he slowly, deliberately, withdrew his hand. "I remember that promise perfectly, Sophia." But both of them knew, with a chilling, exhilarating certainty, that something fundamental, something irrevocable, had shifted in their carefully constructed, mutually agreed upon arrangement. The lines were blurring, the rules were changing, and the game, whatever it had once been, was becoming far more dangerous, far more real, than either of them had ever anticipated. "This is crazy, Sophia?" Isabel, Sophia's best friend, exclaimed, her voice a mixture of disbelief and concern as she observed Sophia meticulously packing her suitcase. "You're going to risk your entire career, your reputation, for a project those investors will probably reject anyway." Sophia Hayes paused, folding a silk blouse, her expression resolute. "It's the right thing to do, Isabel. This neighborhood, these families, they've lived there for generations. They deserve to have their voices heard. And this sudden change of heart?" Isabel pressed, her eyes narrowed with a knowing suspicion. "Does it have anything to do with your new husband? The one who supposedly is an artist but talks like a seasoned engineer?" Sophia avoided her friend's gaze, a faint blush rising on her cheeks. "Ethan just helped me see what I already knew in my heart, Isabel. That some things are more important than profit margins or prestigious awards." 3 months had passed since their impulsive, almost surreal courthouse wedding. Sophia's alternative proposal for the Sustainable Urban Development Project, a bold vision that prioritized community and preservation over demolition and displacement, had, against all odds, gained unexpected, almost miraculous traction. Several smaller, more socially conscious investors had rallied behind her, drawn by her passion and the innovative, human-centered approach of her design. What Sophia didn't know, couldn't possibly know, was that Ethan Vance, with his hidden wealth and vast network of influential contacts, had been discreetly, almost invisibly, working behind the scenes, subtly championing her project, ensuring it received the attention and backing it so richly deserved. That night, Sophia arrived at their Pacific Heights apartment to find Ethan in the kitchen, actually cooking. "What are we celebrating?" she asked, genuinely surprised, as she set her heavy briefcase down on the sofa, the enticing aroma of cilantro and lime filling the air. She rarely found him in the kitchen, let alone preparing a meal. "Your presentation tomorrow," he responded, stirring something in a pot that smelled absolutely delicious. "You need good food, a clear head, before you face those corporate sharks." Sophia smiled, a genuine, unforced smile, and approached him, tentatively, to taste the sauce. Her shoulder brushed against his, a fleeting, accidental contact that now, somehow, didn't feel accidental at all. They both froze for a moment, an unspoken, electric tension crackling in the air between them. The doorbell, sharp and insistent, shattered the fragile moment. It was Francisco Hayes, Sophia's father, holding a bottle of expensive wine. "I thought I'd stop by to wish you luck for tomorrow, Sophia," he explained, his gaze, however, lingering curiously on the surprisingly domestic scene before him, his daughter and her artist husband in the kitchen, sharing a comfortable, almost intimate moment. "I see you're in good company." During dinner, Francisco observed the easy, natural dynamic between them. The way Ethan instinctively anticipated Sophia's needs, passing her the water before she even asked. The way she, in turn, effortlessly completed his sentences when they spoke about the intricacies of her project. "You know," Francisco said, his voice thoughtful, as Ethan went to the kitchen to fetch more wine, "I didn't understand this sudden marriage of yours at first, Sophia. Seemed so impulsive, so unlike you. But now," he paused, his gaze meeting hers, "now I see something genuine here, something real." "Dad, it's complicated," Sophia began, her cheeks flushing, but Francisco simply smiled, a knowing, almost paternal expression on his face. "Love always is, sweetheart. Just remember," he added, his voice softening, "lies, even well-intentioned ones, have very short legs. Truth, however difficult, always finds its way." The presentation the next day was a resounding, almost unbelievable success. Sophia, with a newfound confidence she hadn't possessed just months before, passionately, eloquently defended her vision of progressive preservation, as she now called it. To her profound surprise, the lead investor, Joaquin Vega, a man renowned for his ruthless business acumen, showed a particular, almost enthusiastic interest. "It's refreshing, Ms. Hayes," he commented, his eyes gleaming with admiration, "to see an architect who values innovation and history in equal measure." Coincidentally, he added, a thoughtful expression on his face, "I was speaking with an old colleague yesterday, a brilliant engineer, who mentioned a remarkably similar, almost identical approach to sustainable urban development." When Sophia returned to their apartment that evening, euphoric, exhilarated by her unexpected triumph, she found several complex technical sketches Ethan had, apparently, forgotten to put away. They weren't abstract, artistic drawings, as she might have expected. They were highly detailed, intricate blueprints of ultra-thin solar panels and advanced rainwater harvesting systems. "What is this, really, Ethan?" she asked when he arrived home later, her voice a mixture of confusion and a dawning, unsettling suspicion. "These aren't artistic sketches. These are advanced technical plans. Extremely advanced." Ethan put down his worn messenger bag and sighed, a weary, almost resigned expression on his face. "I have a background in sustainable engineering, Sophia," he admitted, his voice low. "I worked for a major tech company for years, developing new green technologies. And you left all that to become an artist?" she asked, her skepticism evident. "I left my position due to ethical differences with my partners," he explained, his gaze distant, a shadow passing over his usually calm features. They wanted to focus solely on high-profit luxury clients. I wanted to develop technology that was accessible to everyone, that could make a real difference. Sophia processed this new, startling information, feeling with a growing certainty that there was still something more, something fundamental he wasn't telling her. Why didn't you tell me this from the beginning, Ethan? Why all the secrecy? For the same reason you proposed this marriage of convenience, Sophia, he responded, stepping closer, his green eyes searching hers. Sometimes, it's easier to be someone else, someone unburdened by a complicated past, than to face who we truly are and what we've left behind. That weekend, Sophia, needing time to process everything, took Ethan to Oaxaca to visit her grandmother, who was recovering from a recent surgery. Observing him interact so naturally, so effortlessly, with her family, helping her uncle repair a leaking roof, listening patiently to her grandmother's long, rambling stories, awakened a torrent of conflicting, undeniable emotions within Sophia. He fit into her world, her real world, in a way Richard, with his pretentious airs and constant need for validation, never could have. During a sudden power outage, they sat together on the cool, tiled patio, under a breathtaking canopy of stars, the rest of the family asleep inside. The enforced darkness, the shared vulnerability, seemed to dismantle the last remaining barriers between them. I was always afraid my ambition would make me unlovable, Sophia confessed into the quiet darkness, her voice barely a whisper. Richard used to say I worked too much, that I was too intense, too driven. Your passion is what makes you extraordinary, Sophia, Ethan responded, his voice a low, comforting murmur. I grew up watching my own mother work 3 grueling jobs just to keep us afloat. I promised myself then that I would build something truly significant with my life, something that mattered. Sophia reached out her hand in the darkness and found his, their fingers intertwining, a silent, unspoken connection. It's strange, she said, her voice filled with a quiet wonder. This fake marriage, this arrangement, it feels more authentic, more real, than my entire 3-year engagement to Richard ever did. Back in San Francisco, after their return from Oaxaca, something fundamental, something irrevocable had shifted between them. The unspoken tension, the carefully maintained distance, was gone, replaced by an easy, comfortable intimacy. The kiss in Oaxaca, under the starlit sky, amidst the chaos of the storm, had shattered the last remnants of their carefully constructed pretense. Without explicitly discussing it, Ethan began to sleep in the master bedroom with Sophia. Their marriage of convenience, born from desperation and deceit, was slowly, undeniably, evolving into something breathtakingly authentic, something fragile yet powerful, something built not on lies, but on shared truths, shared vulnerabilities, and a dawning, terrifying, yet exhilarating love. One morning, as Sophia Hayes was preparing for an important meeting with the city council about her sustainable development project, her phone rang insistently. Sophia? It's Richard Fulton. Her ex-fiancé's voice, laced with a strange mixture of urgency and a barely concealed, almost gleeful malice, crackled through the line. We need to talk. Urgently. Sophia almost hung up, her patience with Richard's manipulative games long since exhausted. But something in his tone, a chilling undercurrent she couldn't quite decipher, stopped her. What do you want, Richard? It's about your husband, he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. I've discovered something you really need to know. Something the whole city will soon know. They met at a neutral, anonymous coffee shop, far from her usual haunts. Richard, looking genuinely concerned, a stark contrast to his usual smug demeanor, slid a thick, ominous folder across the table towards her. I hired a more thorough investigator than your mother did, Sophia, he explained, his voice low, almost a whisper. Your sudden marriage, his mysterious past. It all seemed too suspicious, too convenient. This is ridiculous, Richard, Sophia retorted, though a cold knot of apprehension tightened in her stomach. You're just jealous. Look for yourself, Sophia, he insisted, his gaze unwavering. Ethan Vance isn't just any engineer. He founded Raycom Technologies, and he sold it for billions 2 years ago. He's extremely wealthy, Sophia. Doesn't it strike you as odd that he never once mentioned it? That he lives like a struggling artist when he could buy this entire city block without even blinking? Sophia felt the air leave her lungs as she stared at the damning documents. Financial reports, newspaper clippings, corporate filings. In one photograph, Ethan, his dark hair cut short, clean-shaven, dressed in an impeccably tailored power suit, stood beside a group of smiling executives, his expression one of cool, confident authority. The caption beneath the photo described him as the visionary innovator behind Raycom. This wasn't the Ethan she knew, the quiet, introspective artist who discussed sustainable architecture with such passion, who cooked simple meals with her in their shared kitchen, who held her with such surprising tenderness in the quiet darkness of the night. This doesn't prove anything, she stammered, her hands trembling as she closed the folder, her mind reeling. Just answer me this, Sophia, Richard pressed, his voice gentle but firm. If you truly married for love, as you both so convincingly claim, why would he hide something so fundamental, so monumental about his life, about who he truly is? That night, Sophia observed Ethan as he worked late on his laptop, his brow furrowed in concentration, seemingly oblivious to the storm raging within her. Who was this man she shared her life with, her bed with? Was their entire relationship, their burgeoning love, just another elaborate deception, another carefully constructed illusion? The doubts, poisonous and insidious, began to creep in, chilling her to the bone. What are you thinking about? Ethan asked, noticing her intense, searching gaze, his own eyes softening with a familiar warmth that now, terrifyingly, felt like a lie. Sophia took a deep, shaky breath, her heart pounding, determined to confront the situation directly, to demand the truth, whatever the cost. I'm thinking, Ethan, she said, her voice barely controlled, a tremor of anger, of betrayal in her tone, that perhaps we're more alike than I ever realized, both of us hiding fundamental, crucial parts of who we truly are from each other. Ethan slowly closed his laptop, his expression instantly becoming cautious, guarded. What exactly are you referring to, Sophia? I think you know perfectly well what I'm referring to, she retorted, her voice rising, the carefully constructed dam of her composure finally breaking. The question is, Ethan, when were you planning to tell me the truth about who you really are, Mr. Raycom Technologies? Or was that just another convenient omission in our perfect little arrangement? What happens when a monumental deception is brutally unmasked, shattering a fragile, burgeoning love and forcing two souls to confront the devastating consequences of their hidden truths? Can trust, once broken, ever truly be mended? Or are some lies simply too profound to forgive? The silence that followed Sophia Hayes's accusation stretched between them, thick and suffocating, a palpable entity in the otherwise tranquil Pacific Heights apartment. Ethan Vance slowly closed his laptop, his usually composed features now a mask of weary resignation and a surprising, almost heartbreaking relief. How did you find out? He finally asked, his voice a low, tired murmur. That doesn't matter, Sophia retorted, her voice trembling with a mixture of raw anger and a profound, aching hurt. What matters is that you lied to me, Ethan. All this time you lived a lie, pretending to be the struggling bohemian artist, when in reality you're a billionaire? He completed, a humorless, self-deprecating smile touching his lips. Yes, Sophia, I founded Raycom Technologies, and I sold it for a fortune 2 years ago. Sophia stood abruptly from the sofa, needing to move, to put physical distance between them, as if his very presence, his revealed truth, was a suffocating weight. Why, Ethan? Why the elaborate charade? What did you possibly gain by pretending to be poor, by deceiving me like this? At first, Ethan began, rising slowly from his chair, his green eyes, usually so clear and assessing, now clouded with a deep, weary sadness. It was simple curiosity. I wanted to experience life without the suffocating weight of my money, my name, defining every single interaction. Then, he paused, his gaze fixed on her. Then I met you, and I accepted your proposition because it seemed like the perfect, almost ironic opportunity. A marriage of convenience, with clear, defined limits, no emotional expectations, no hidden agendas. An experiment, then? Sophia's voice was laced with a bitter, cutting sarcasm. Was I just some amusing social experiment for you, Ethan? Did you enjoy playing the part of the impoverished artist with the foolish, naive architect? It was never like that, Sophia. Ethan tried to approach her, his hand outstretched, but she recoiled as if burned. What began as curiosity, as a game, perhaps, quickly transformed into something real, something profound. I fell in love with you, Sophia, with your passion, your integrity, your unwavering vision. With you. How can I possibly believe you now? She cried, tears finally, uncontrollably, streaming down her face. The man I married, the man I thought I was falling in love with, he doesn't even exist. He was a fabrication, a lie. The man you married is who I truly am, Sophia. Ethan insisted, his voice filled with a desperate, pleading urgency. The money, the company, those things don't define me. Not anymore. The person you've known these past few months, the one who argued with you about architectural designs, who cooked surprisingly terrible dinners with you, who listened to your dreams, your fears, that is me. The real me. I need you to leave, Sophia said finally, her voice a choked whisper, her gaze fixed on some distant, unseen point beyond the glittering city lights. Tonight. I need time to think, to process all of this. Ethan nodded slowly, a look of profound, heartbreaking resignation settling over his features. I understand, he said, his voice barely audible. But before I go, I need you to know something, Sophia. I never intended to manipulate you. What grew between us, it was real. At least it was for me. He turned and walked towards the door, his steps heavy, his shoulders slumped. That night, alone in her vast, silent apartment for the very first time in months, Sophia wept until she had no tears left, her heart a shattered mosaic of conflicting emotions, anger, betrayal, a profound, aching grief, and yet, somewhere deep within the ruins, a tiny, fragile flicker of an undeniable, an unforgettable love. What happens when the devastating weight of betrayal threatens to shatter your world, and the only lifeline you have is the unwavering wisdom of a true friend? Could a heartfelt conversation offer a new perspective, a fragile path towards forgiveness, or would the pain of deception prove too deep to overcome? The next morning, Sophia Hayes called Isabel, her best friend, her voice still raw with unshed tears. It was all too good to be true, Izzy, she concluded, after recounting the previous night's devastating revelations. A man who actually understood me, who supported my work, who saw me for who I truly am. I should have known there was something terribly wrong. Wait, Isabel interrupted, her voice sharp with a surprising practicality. So, your problem is that he lied about being poor when in reality he's incredibly wealthy? Sophia, honey, most women would consider that a rather pleasant, if unexpected, surprise. The problem is the lie, Izzy, Sophia exclaimed, frustration lacing her tone. How can I possibly trust someone who hid something so fundamental, so monumental, about his life, about who he is? Isabel fell silent for a moment, her voice thoughtful when she finally spoke. And were you completely honest with him from the very beginning, Sophia? Didn't this whole arrangement start as a mutual deception? You wanted a convenient husband to save your reputation. He, apparently, wanted someone who wouldn't value him solely for his money, someone who would see the man beneath the billions. Her friend's words, so astute, so uncomfortably close to the bone, resonated deeply with Sophia, forcing her to confront her own role in their complicated charade. Over the following weeks, Sophia immersed herself in her work, throwing all her energy into the Sustainable Development Project, ignoring Ethan Vance's persistent messages, and increasingly desperate emails. Her alternative proposal, her vision for a community-centered, historically preserved development, was finally, miraculously, approved by the city council, a testament to her talent, her resilience, her unwavering commitment. It was poised to become the flagship project of her burgeoning architectural firm. One afternoon, during a site visit to the construction area, Sophia noticed a group of distinguished-looking executives touring the grounds. She was surprised to recognize Joaquin Vega, her lead investor, deep in conversation with someone who looked vaguely familiar. As the man turned, Sophia felt the ground shift beneath her feet. It was Ethan, dressed not in his usual bohemian artist attire, but in an impeccably tailored power suit she had never seen him wear before, exuding an aura of quiet, confident authority that was both startling and undeniably compelling. The executives, noticing her, approached, their faces alight with admiration. Architect Hayes, Joaquin Vega greeted her warmly. "We were just discussing your brilliant work. Mr. Vance here," he gestured towards Ethan, was just explaining the innovative technological solutions his company could implement in the project's energy system. Cutting-edge stuff, truly revolutionary. Sophia stared at Ethan, utterly speechless, her mind struggling to reconcile this powerful, confident CEO with the quiet, introspective artist she thought she knew. "Mr. Vance?" she managed to stammer, her voice barely a whisper. "You too? You know each other?" An uncomfortable, almost palpable silence fell over the group. "Sophia," Ethan began cautiously, his green eyes searching hers, "Raycom Technologies is providing the solar technology for your project. I thought you knew." "If you'll excuse me," Sophia said abruptly, her voice tight with a sudden, overwhelming wave of conflicting emotions, as she quickly walked away. Ethan caught up with her by her car, his expression a mixture of desperation and a fragile, burgeoning hope. "I can explain, Sophia." "More lies to explain, Ethan?" she retorted, her voice sharp, her hand already on the car door. "Have you been manipulating my project all this time? Is this just another game for you?" "I've been supporting it, Sophia, not manipulating it," he corrected, his voice earnest. "I believed in your vision from the very beginning. When we separated, I continued to honor the commitment Raycom had already made. I wanted to see your dream become a reality." "Without telling me anything?" she challenged, her eyes blazing. "I was respecting your desire for no communication," Ethan explained, his voice gentle. "This project, your vision, it's too important to let our personal problems jeopardize it. It's about more than just us, Sophia." That evening, at her Pacific Heights apartment, Sophia received an unexpected call from her father, Francisco Hayes. "Did you know Ethan has been quietly supporting your project from the very beginning?" he asked without preamble, his voice filled with a surprising warmth. "He's been its staunchest advocate, its most powerful champion." I suspected," Sophia responded, her voice barely audible. "Joaquin Vega is an old friend of mine, Sophia. He told me how a mysterious investor, someone who wished to remain anonymous, convinced others to back your alternative vision, to believe in your dream. And you didn't think to tell me, Dad?" "It wasn't my story to tell, sweetheart," her father replied gently. "But I will say this, Sophia. People make mistakes. We all do. The question is, are those mistakes who they are, or just a momentary lapse in judgment, a detour on their path to becoming who they're truly meant to be? What if the professional collaboration born from a web of lies became the unexpected crucible for forging a genuine, undeniable connection? Could two hearts, once separated by deceit, find their way back to each other through shared passion, mutual respect, and the terrifying, exhilarating vulnerability of a second chance? Over the following weeks, Sophia Hayes found herself, reluctantly at first, and with a growing, undeniable respect, working indirectly with Ethan Vance. Their respective teams collaborated closely on the intricate implementation of sustainable technologies for her groundbreaking urban development project. Intense, highly technical meetings, she observed Ethan as he expertly, passionately directed his team, his deep understanding of cutting-edge green energy solutions, his innovative vision, undeniable. One late afternoon, during a particularly heated discussion about the project's rainwater harvesting system, their professional temperaments, both fiercely passionate, undeniably strong-willed, inevitably clashed. "Your design is aesthetically perfect, Sophia," Ethan argued, his voice firm but respectful. "But technically, it's unnecessarily complicated. We can simplify the engineering significantly without compromising the artistic integrity, and in doing so, improve efficiency and reduce long-term maintenance costs." "And your proposed solution, Ethan," Sophia countered, her own voice equally firm, "while undoubtedly efficient, completely ignores the unique cultural and historical context of the neighborhood. It's not just about numbers and efficiency, Ethan. It's about creating spaces that resonate with the people who will inhabit them, spaces that honor their heritage." After everyone else had, somewhat awkwardly, left the conference room, their hushed whispers echoing in the suddenly silent space, Sophia and Ethan remained, the lingering tension a palpable presence between them. "You always see problems no one else even notices," Ethan finally said, breaking the silence, his voice a low, almost admiring murmur. "It's what I've always admired about you, Sophia, your unwavering commitment to the human element." "And you?" she responded, a faint, almost reluctant smile touching her lips, the first genuine warmth she had offered him since their painful separation. "Never accept that something simply can't be done. You always find a way." They looked at each other for a long moment, the simmering professional tension slowly, almost imperceptibly, transforming into something far more personal, far more intimate. "I miss you, Sophia," Ethan said simply, his voice raw with an unexpected vulnerability. "Our home, our conversations, yes." Sophia looked away, her heart aching, her mind a chaotic whirlwind of conflicting emotions. "What we had, Ethan," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "was built on lies, on a carefully constructed illusion." "Not all of it," he insisted, his voice gentle but firm. "The foundations may have been flawed, yes, defective even, but what we built together day by day, conversation by conversation, that was real, Sophia. At least it was for me." That night, Sophia couldn't sleep. She replayed their conversation, his words, his gaze, over and over in her mind. She remembered how they had evolved from suspicious strangers to tentative confidants, from reluctant partners in a marriage of convenience to something profoundly, undeniably significant. Could she truly forgive his monumental deception? Could she dare to trust him, to trust them again? Her phone buzzed at midnight, a message from Ethan. "There's something I need to show you. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., at the Coyoacan Cafe, where we first met. Please, Sophia, just be there." What do you think Ethan wants to show Sophia? Is this a desperate attempt to win her back, or a genuine gesture of reconciliation? And will Sophia agree to meet him, to take another, perhaps final, leap of faith? What if the place where a lie began could also be the stage for a profound, life-altering truth? Could a shared cup of coffee, amidst the ghosts of a deceptive past, become the foundation for a future built on honesty, forgiveness, and a love that dared to defy all odds? The Coyoacan Cafe in San Francisco. I'll keep Coyoacan as a specific, perhaps unique name for the cafe, even if the city is now San Francisco, to honor the original story's detail, was practically empty when Sophia Hayes arrived, precisely at 9 in the morning. Ethan Vance was already there, seated at the very same small, secluded table where they had first met, what felt like a lifetime ago. He wasn't wearing his usual casual artist attire, nor the impeccably tailored power suit of a CEO. Instead, he wore simple jeans and a crisp, well-fitting shirt, a subtle, almost unconscious attempt, perhaps, to find a middle ground between his two disparate identities, a bridge between the man he had pretended to be and the man he truly was. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice a little hoarse, as she hesitantly sat across from him. On the table between them lay several rolled-up architectural blueprints. "What's this?" Sophia asked, her curiosity piqued despite her lingering reservations. "Open them," Ethan urged gently. Sophia carefully unrolled the first blueprint and immediately recognized the building. It was the Coyoacan Cafe, the very place where they were sitting. The designs showed a complete, breathtaking renovation, one that meticulously preserved the historic facade while ingeniously modernizing the interior with sustainable, cutting-edge design elements. "I bought this place," Ethan explained, his voice quiet but firm. "They were going to demolish it, Sophia, to build another soulless, generic department store." Sophia slowly, meticulously, reviewed the intricate details of the design, her architect's eye recognizing elements, subtle touches, that she herself would have included, had she been given the opportunity. Spaces that encouraged community, intelligent use of natural light, innovative, efficient energy systems. "These designs," she observed, her voice filled with a mixture of confusion and a dawning reluctant admiration. "They're remarkably similar to my own style, my own philosophy." "Because I know you, Sophia," he responded simply, his green eyes searching hers. "I know your vision, what you value in architecture, in life. This place, this cafe, it's important to both of us for different reasons. I wanted to preserve it, to honor its history, but in a way that also respected your philosophy, your vision." Sophia looked up from the blueprints, her gaze fixed on his face, studying him intently. "Why are you showing me this now, Ethan?" "Because the Sustainable Development Project, your project, is almost finished," Ethan responded, his voice gaining a new, quiet strength. "And soon, Sophia, very soon, we'll have to decide if our arrangement, our temporary marriage, ends as well." 3 weeks before their first, unconventional wedding anniversary, the grand inauguration of Sophia's Sustainable Urban Development Project was a resounding, almost unbelievable success. Politicians, investors, and media outlets from across the country lauded her innovative vision, her unwavering commitment to balancing historical preservation with cutting-edge, environmentally conscious design. During his keynote speech, Francisco Hayes, Sophia's father, casually yet significantly mentioned Ethan Vance's quiet, instrumental support from the very beginning, his anonymous championing of her audacious, revolutionary vision. After the ceremony, amidst the glittering crowd of well-wishers, Sophia searched for Ethan, but he had already, discreetly, slipped away. She drove to the address Isabel, her best friend, had given her, a modest, unassuming house in a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood, a world away from the opulent grandeur of his former life. She found him in a sun-drenched studio at the back of the small garden, meticulously working on a complex prototype of an ultra-thin, highly efficient solar panel. The space, a harmonious blend of advanced technology and artistic expression, felt undeniably, authentically him. "You could have told me you were supporting the project, Ethan," she said softly from the doorway, her voice a gentle accusation. Ethan looked up, genuinely surprised by her sudden appearance. "It was never about obtaining recognition, Sophia," he responded, setting down his tools, his gaze direct, unwavering. "I believed in your vision, then and now." They stood in silence for a long moment, the unspoken weight of 6 months of carefully maintained distance, of unresolved emotions, hanging heavy in the air between them. "Why did you buy a house here, Ethan?" Sophia finally asked, her voice barely a whisper. "With your money, you could live anywhere in the world." "Because this place has meaning, Sophia," he responded simply, his voice filled with a quiet, profound conviction. "It's part of something we created together. Something real." Sophia stepped fully into the studio, her gaze sweeping over the intricate prototypes, the complex designs, the scattered, well-loved books on sustainable engineering. In one corner, on a small, worn table, she saw photographs of her sustainable development project, families returning to their beautifully renovated, yet historically preserved homes, elderly residents sitting contentedly in the newly created, sun-drenched common areas, children laughing as they played in the vibrant, community-managed gardens. "Our story began with lies, Ethan," she said, her voice thick with emotion, gently touching one of the photographs. "Me, pretending I needed a husband to save my reputation. You, pretending to be someone with fewer resources, fewer complications. We started out badly," Ethan admitted, his voice raw with a newfound honesty. "But what grew between us, Sophia, that was real. At least it was for me. For me too, she confessed finally, the words of fragile, yet liberating admission. And that's what scared me the most. When I discovered the truth about you, about Raycom, I wasn't just angry about the lie, Ethan. I was terrified. Terrified because it meant that everything else, everything I had begun to feel, could also be false. An illusion. Nothing of what truly mattered was false, Sophia. Ethan stepped closer, his green eyes searching hers, his presence a quiet, reassuring strength, yet maintaining a respectful distance that acknowledged her lingering pain, her hard-won independence. My support for your ideas are late-night conversations about architecture and life, how I feel when you're in the room. All of that, Sophia, all of that is real. Undeniably real. Sophia closed her eyes for a moment, absorbing his words, letting them seep into the deepest, most guarded corners of her heart. When she opened them again, she saw, lying on his cluttered workbench, the divorce papers that had arrived at their apartment weeks ago, still unsigned. I received them too, he said, following her gaze, his voice quiet. I haven't signed them. Neither have I, she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. Their gazes met again, and this time, there was something more than just lingering nostalgia, more than just shared history. There was a fragile, yet undeniable spark of possibility, of hope. We built everything on convenience and appearances, Sophia observed sadly, her voice tinged with regret. The very same things we both claimed to despise. Not everything, Ethan contradicted gently. The foundations may have been flawed, yes, defective even, but what we built together, day by day, conversation by conversation, that was real. He pulled a small, worn photo album from a nearby drawer and handed it to her. Inside, there were candid snapshots Isabel had taken during the months they lived together. Ethan and Sophia cooking, their heads bent in shared concentration. Working side by side at the massive dining room table, blueprints spread out before them. Laughing on the balcony, a rare, unguarded moment of shared joy. I've never been happier than in those simple, everyday moments, Sophia, he confessed, his voice thick with emotion. Sophia gently touched a photograph of them in Oaxaca, helping her grandmother in the sun-drenched garden. Their faces relaxed, their smiles genuine. How can we possibly trust each other again, Ethan? She asked, her voice barely audible. After starting with such monumental lies. By starting over, Ethan suggested, his voice a low, hopeful murmur. No conditions this time, Sophia. No pretenses. No carefully constructed charades. He took the divorce papers from the workbench and slowly, deliberately, tore them in half, then in half again, letting the pieces flutter to the floor like discarded remnants of a painful, unnecessary past. If you want to end this, Sophia, truly end this, I'll understand. I'll sign whatever you want me to sign, whenever you want me to sign it. But if, he paused, his gaze intense, unwavering. If there's even a chance, a tiny, fragile chance, that what we have is real. Sophia looked at the torn divorce papers, then back at Ethan. She saw the man she had come to know, to respect, to love, over these past tumultuous months. Not the reclusive billionaire, not the bohemian artist, but Ethan, just Ethan. A man who, like her, had made mistakes, had hidden his true self, but who was now, finally, breathtakingly willing to be real. I propose something different, she said finally, a slow, radiant smile spreading across her face, a smile that reached her eyes, illuminating them with a newfound, courageous hope. Let's start over. Let's get to know each other truly. No arrangements, no conditions. No lies. Like a first date? He asked, a small, hopeful smile forming on his own lips. Like two people? She responded, extending her hand towards him, a silent, heartfelt invitation. Seeing where this us leads. What if a love story, born from a web of lies and a desperate bargain, could be meticulously, breathtakingly rebuilt on a foundation of raw honesty, unwavering trust, and a shared commitment to a future where every imperfection was celebrated, every scar a testament to resilience? Could two souls, once lost in their own deceptions, truly find their happily ever after. Not in a fairy tale, but in the beautiful, imperfect reality of a love chosen, a love earned? A week later, Sophia Hayes and Ethan Vance had their first official date at the Coyoacan Cafe in San Francisco, now in the midst of its inspired renovation. Seated amidst construction materials and half-finished walls, they shared a simple breakfast, the air filled with the scent of fresh coffee and the promise of new beginnings. "It's strange, isn't it?" Sophia commented, looking around at the organized chaos, a thoughtful smile on her face. "Everything began here with a lie, a desperate charade. And now we're rebuilding literally on a foundation of truth." "As an architect, Sophia," Ethan responded, his green eyes twinkling, "you know that sometimes you have to demolish the old, the flawed, to build something stronger, something better, something truly lasting." As their hands met across the rough wooden table, there were no pretenses, no lingering expectations, no carefully constructed facades. Just two people, raw and real, who had, against all odds, found something unexpected, something precious. An authentic connection, born from the most improbable, most unconventional of circumstances. "You know what's the most ironic part?" Sophia said, a soft, genuine laugh escaping her lips. "My mother is finally, truly, thrilled with my marriage. Now that she knows you're a billionaire, of course." Ethan laughed, a warm, unburdened sound that Sophia had, she realized with a jolt, come to deeply cherish. "And you?" he asked, his expression turning serious, his gaze tender. "Are you thrilled with your marriage, Sophia?" Sophia intertwined her fingers with his, feeling the familiar, comforting warmth of his touch, a warmth that now held not just a spark of attraction, but the steady, reassuring glow of a love that had been tested, a love that had, against all odds, endured. "I'm thrilled," she responded, her voice soft but firm, her eyes shining with a quiet, unshakable certainty. "With the extraordinary opportunity to build a real one, this time, Ethan, with solid foundations, with truth, with us." As the morning sun streamed through the unfinished windows of the Coyoacan Cafe, illuminating the meticulously drawn renovation blueprints spread across their table, Sophia and Ethan both felt, with a profound, shared understanding, the exhilarating promise of something truly beautiful, something meticulously designed, something built to last. Not a marriage of convenience, not a charade for societal approval, but a love story, their love story, finally, breathtakingly, unfolding. What if the truest masterpieces weren't built of stone and steel, but of shared dreams, unwavering support, and a love that, against all odds, not only endured but blossomed into a vibrant testament to the transformative power of second chances? Could a future, once unimaginable, become a breathtaking reality, one heartfelt blueprint, one shared sunrise, at a time? A year later, the soft Christmas lights of San Francisco illuminated the newly renovated, now thriving, Coyoacan Cafe. What was once a worn-out, forgotten local spot now gleamed as a vibrant community hub, a perfect, harmonious blend of rich history and cutting-edge, modern design. The original brick walls, lovingly restored, contrasted beautifully with the almost invisible, ultra-thin solar panels discreetly integrated into the roof. On each table, small, lush plants thrived in terracotta pots, designed by local artisans, a testament to Sophia's unwavering commitment to community and sustainability. Sophia Hayes, or rather Sophia Hayes Vance, as she was now known, watched from the entrance as the first eager customers of the evening explored the transformed space, their faces alight with admiration. Her own architectural firm, Mendoza Conscious Spaces, founded just 6 months prior with Ethan's quiet, unwavering support, had made this project its stunning, widely acclaimed calling card. Preservation with purpose, the critics raved. "It seems they like it," Ethan Vance said, approaching her with 2 steaming mugs of artisanal coffee, his green eyes crinkling at the corners in a warm, familiar smile. "It's because it works, Ethan," she responded, taking a grateful sip from her mug, the rich aroma a comforting embrace. "The space respects its history, its soul, but it also looks boldly, unapologetically, towards the future. It has a purpose beyond just profit. They had spent 12 incredibly transformative months since that first real date in this very same, then dilapidated cafe. 12 months since they had consciously, courageously agreed to rebuild their relationship, their lives on a foundation of raw, unshakable honesty. The journey hadn't been easy. Trust, once so brutally shattered, was rebuilt painstakingly, day by day, conversation by honest conversation. The first few months were a delicate dance of rediscovery. Formal dates where they laughed, sometimes uncomfortably, at the sheer absurdity of their situation. They were technically still married, yet they were getting to know each other as if for the very first time. Ethan, with a newfound, surprising vulnerability, gradually opened up his real world to her, his cutting-edge technological innovation lab, the quiet, impactful educational projects he secretly, generously financed in underserved communities. Sophia, in turn, shared her deepest professional dreams, her ambitious visions that extended far beyond the established, often creatively stifling, firm where she had previously worked. Architect Hayesvance, one of the distinguished guests at the cafe's grand reopening celebration, called out, approaching them with an outstretched hand. Might I explain the ingenious concept behind the central rainwater harvesting fountain? Sophia gracefully guided the small, captivated group towards the heart of the cafe, where an innovative, sculptural fountain recycled rainwater, a stunning fusion of beauty and functionality. The idea is simple, she explained, her voice clear, confident, functional beauty. Every element you see here serves a practical, sustainable purpose while simultaneously honoring the unique aesthetic, the vibrant soul of this historic neighborhood. From a quiet corner, Francisco and Gabriella Hayes, Sophia's parents, observed their daughter with a mixture of profound pride and a quiet, lingering disbelief. Even Gabriella, initially so skeptical, so resistant, had slowly, grudgingly, begun to change her opinion of Ethan, though Sophia suspected, with a knowing smile, that it had more to do with his recently re-established, and now ethically managed, multi-billion-dollar bank account than a genuine appreciation for his transformed character. Your presentation was perfect, my love, Ethan commented when the last of the guests had finally, reluctantly, dispersed, leaving them alone in the quiet, beautifully lit cafe. Though you forgot to mention who meticulously designed the incredibly efficient, almost invisible water filtration system. Because, he added, a playful, teasing glint in his keen green eyes, the brilliant, visionary engineer behind that particular innovation prefers, as you know, to remain discreetly anonymous. Sophia laughed, a warm, genuine sound that filled the now empty space. The professional collaboration between them, a seamless fusion of her architectural vision and his technological genius, had not only strengthened their business ventures but had also, unexpectedly, profoundly deepened their personal relationship. Her firm, Mendoza Conscious Spaces, now worked regularly with the sustainable technologies developed by Ethan's revitalized Raycom. Their complementary strengths, their shared passion for innovation and social impact, created groundbreaking projects that neither of them could have ever achieved alone. Isabel, Sophia's best friend, approached them, a glass of champagne in her hand, her eyes sparkling with joy. Who would have ever thought, she teased, that your impulsive, almost disastrous marriage to a complete stranger would end up like this? You should write a telenovela, Sophia. It would be a bestseller. Very funny, Izzy, Sophia responded, a radiant smile on her face. Where's Daniel? She asked, referring to Isabel's new boyfriend, a charming photojournalist. Taking 1,000 pictures for a behind-the-scenes feature on the cafe for an architectural magazine, Isabel replied, rolling her eyes good-naturedly, pointing towards her beau, who was enthusiastically documenting every detail of the beautifully renovated space. When the last of their friends had finally departed, leaving Sophia and Ethan alone in the quiet, serene cafe, they sat at the very same small, secluded table where their improbable story had begun, a year and a half ago. I have something for you, Ethan said, his voice a low, intimate murmur, as he pulled a small, velvet-covered jeweler's box from his pocket. What is it? Sophia asked, her heart suddenly, unexpectedly, fluttering. Open it. Inside, nestled on a bed of black satin, lay two simple yet elegant wedding bands, crafted from recycled gold and ethically sourced diamonds. I thought, Ethan explained, his voice thick with emotion, that since our first rings were rather hastily acquired under somewhat unconventional circumstances, we deserved a pair that truly represented who we are now, who we have become, together. Sophia took one of QC, the rings, noticing the unique, intricate design. A perfect combination of traditional materials and modern, sustainable innovation, she whispered, her eyes shining with unshed tears. They're beautiful, Ethan. What's the occasion? She asked, her voice barely audible. Our first real anniversary is approaching, he responded, a tender, loving smile on his face. I thought perhaps we could renew our vows. This time, Sophia, for all the right reasons. With all the right intentions. 2 weeks later, in a small, intimate ceremony in the sun-drenched garden of the beautiful San Francisco home they now shared, Sophia and Ethan exchanged vows. Not before a civil judge and a handful of bewildered witnesses, but before their closest family and dearest friends. There was no tension this time, no lingering confusion, no unspoken doubts. Only certainty and a profound, unshakable purpose. That afternoon, they visited the sustainable community development that had, in so many ways, started it all. The residents had lovingly created a vibrant community garden in the central common area, naming it the Hayes Vance Garden, in honor of the architect who had saved their homes, and the enigmatic benefactor who had, from the shadows, made her vision a reality. Walking hand in hand among the newly planted, fragrant fruit trees, Ethan took Sophia's hand, his gaze thoughtful. Do you ever regret it, Sophia? He asked, his voice a quiet murmur. Proposing marriage to a complete stranger in that coffee shop that day? Sophia considered the question seriously for a moment, her eyes scanning the thriving community around them, the joyful sounds of children's laughter echoing in the warm afternoon air. I regret the reasons, Ethan, she responded, her voice soft but firm. I regret the desperation, the dishonesty, the fear that drove me to make such a reckless, impulsive choice. But, she paused, turning to him, her eyes shining with a love so profound it took his breath away. I can never, ever regret the outcome. I can never regret us. They stopped in front of a small, colorful mural the residents had painted, a vibrant depiction of the neighborhood's transformation, a celebration of resilience, community, and hope. You know what we really built this past year, Ethan? Sophia asked, her voice filled with a quiet wonder. It wasn't just the Coyoacan Cafe, or my architectural firm, or even this incredible, thriving development. We built trust, the most valuable, most difficult to obtain, most precious material of all. The strongest foundation for any structure. Ethan nodded, his heart full. That night, in the quiet intimacy of their shared home, they worked side by side at the large dining room table, blueprints for their next ambitious project spread out before them, a cutting-edge, environmentally conscious house they would design and build together. A house that would perfectly combine Sophia's visionary architectural aesthetic with Ethan's groundbreaking technological innovations. The house that would be their forever home. I think the study should face east, Sophia suggested, her pencil flying across the page, sketching her ideas with a confident, practiced hand. You'll have the best natural light to work in, my love. And the kitchen? Ethan added, his own pencil moving in perfect synchrony with hers. Needs more space, much more space, considering how much time we both seem to spend there now. Their pencils moved in harmonious rhythm across the paper, sometimes overlapping, sometimes complementing each other. Not unlike the way they had learned to live together, to love together, respecting their individual spaces while joyfully, creatively, building something unique, something beautiful, in the shared, sacred spaces between them. It's curious, isn't it? Sophia reflected, as they finished the initial, exciting sketches for their dream home. We met under such absurd, almost unbelievable circumstances. Yet we chose to stay. We chose to build something real from the ruins of our deceptions. Ethan nodded, remembering the long, arduous, yet ultimately rewarding path from that first, impulsive encounter in the Coyoacan Cafe. The best, most enduring structures, he responded, quoting a phrase Sophia often used, a phrase that had become their shared mantra, sometimes have the most improbable, most unconventional beginnings. As they carefully gathered the blueprints of what would soon be their shared home, both understood, with a profound, unshakable certainty, that they had built something far more valuable, far more enduring, than any architect or engineer could ever design alone. A relationship founded on truth, fortified by challenges and meticulously, lovingly designed not to impress from the outside, but to sustain, to nurture, to thrive from within. The doorbell rang, interrupting their quiet, contented moment. It was Isabel with Daniel, her photojournalist boyfriend, arriving for the casual dinner they had planned. "Are you ready to show off your dream house plans?" Isabel teased, entering the warm, inviting living room, her eyes sparkling with affection. Sophia looked at Ethan and smiled, a radiant, joyful smile that reached the deepest corners of his heart. "We're ready to share the blueprints," she responded, her voice filled with a quiet, profound happiness. "But the dream house, Izzy? We're already building that. Every single day. Together." This powerful story of Sophia and Ethan reminds us that even from the most unconventional, even deceptive beginnings, true love, built on honesty, forgiveness, and a shared commitment, can not only blossom but endure, creating a legacy far more valuable than any material wealth. If their journey from a marriage of convenience to a love story for the ages touched your heart, if you believe in the transformative power of second chances and the enduring strength of the human spirit, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs a dose of inspiration, and comment below with your favorite moment from their incredible story. What part of their journey resonated with you the most? And of course, subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming tales that celebrate the resilience of the human heart and the beautiful, unexpected ways love can find us. We'd also love to know, where are you watching this story from today? Your voices, your experiences, enrich our global community. Let's keep building bridges of understanding and hope, one story at a time.